So what do you do for a living?
I won't try and dress it up. I sell clothes and tequila.
And how long have you been doing that for?
Well, the clothes bit, just about a year. So I'm in retail. And previously I was put into a business to help to try and recover a failing heritage retail business in high-end consumer living. So sofas, chairs, etc. That business was called the Conran Shop. So I was brought in as the group sales and commercial director.
Just to jump in there.
Yeah, please.
What I realise is sofas.
Yeah, go on, tell me.
Sofas have a lot of voids in them.
And when you say voids, you mean gaps?
Like, so in the arms, you've got that big, let's say half a square metre void that could have, with a sliding door, a compartment for storage. You know, sometimes
I'll tell you something now. The company I work for was a company called the Conran Shop, which is a very famous heritage brand in Britain. It's founded by a gentleman called Sir Terence Conran, and they sell £15,000, £20,000 sofas, and some that are much more reasonable. But the tendency is the higher up you go in terms of value, these voids you talk about, the more wings and bells you get. So you get magazine slots, you'll get pull-out trays for your shampoo. You know, a bit like the 70s Bond films where you press a button. Roger Moore's lying there in his dressing gown and out pops to the Bollinger. So I did that for a period, and then there's a very famous British menswear brand that focuses on suiting and tailoring primarily. It's a tailor, a civil and military tailor. Arguably the most famous in the world. It's called Geese and Hawks, number 1 Savile Row, and that was acquired out of administration just before the beginning of this year. And when that happened, I had a conversation with the people who had acquired it. I said, what a fantastic brand, and it's so fantastic that it's back in British hands, and is there any way that I can be involved? You know, I really think in my head I could, my cogs were working. They don't work very well most of the time, but I was thinking, how can I, this is such a fantastic brand, it's back in British hands, it's been unloved for far too long, and I really think I can add some value. And we had a few conversations, and the work that I'd done in my previous role tangibly demonstrated that I had a modicum of talent or ability, and they said, right, let's give it a go. So we are currently it was November, so November was, I think it was acquired on November the 24th last year, so December. So we are 11 months into the new ownership of the business, and we're working incredibly hard. We've got a very enthusiastic.
Time in traffic, 9 minutes.
We can pause for the sat nav. That's not a problem. I don't mind.
Oh, don't worry. Go ahead.
Probably more interesting than what I'm saying. So the first bit was a thing called people and process, which is where essentially, because the business had been so unloved, and it was owned by a Chinese group called Trinity Group, which bought a load of luxury brands, heritage brands, and went into liquidation and killed them all off one by one, and purely kept this particular brand because it held 3 royal warrants: the Duke of Edinburgh's, the Queen's, and at the time Prince Charles's, who's now obviously he's now the king. So it was a real flagship brand. It has a massive halo effect. It's number 1 Savile Row. It's right next to the Royal Academy. It's a very well known, very well respected brand.
Why were they struggling?
They were struggling because they've been unloved, and also because I think for a certain period in time the general public had fallen out of love with suiting and tailoring, particularly men. They tended to wear them just for work or for weddings or funerals.
No one wears ties anymore.
No one wears ties, but there's a resurgence. People have. There's been a real reawakening of what I call formal wear. There's a great company called Suit Supply, which I'm hugely admiration of. It was set up 20 years ago by a bloke in his bedroom in Amsterdam, and it now turns over $400 million a year.
On suits?
Yeah, all they sell is suits. They sell £30 million worth of suits in the UK. They've only got 3 stores, and that's all. And that's just bricks and mortar retail. So in terms of that's just money through the tills. That excludes their online business. So that tells you a very strong story that the suits, formal wear, tailoring, whether it's a jacket, whether it's separates. Separates is when you mix and match. Yeah. It's not dead. It's in fact thriving. Now, whilst we're a different market to that, we're a little bit more formal. We're certainly much more premium, and we will be becoming much more premium and much more luxury.
How much does a suit start at in that place for 30?
At Suit Supply, I would say probably, and I could be wrong. I reckon about off the peg you're looking probably between £400 to £600.
Okay.
I'd say that's about right. And where we see it in our ready to wear, we're probably looking at about £1,200.
What I'm interested to hear, Tom,
is
how did you get into this business?
How did I get into this particular one?
No, in the whole what you do.
It's actually an interesting one. I left university and joined a business that had started only 6 months. Just started in its infancy.
Were you a Cambridge person, Oxford?
No, I went to Reading.
Okay.
And I read PPE, well, the poor man's PPE, so I read politics, economics, and international relations. And I was.
Why did you say that's a poor man's PPE?
Because PPE is the famous degree that is done at Oxford, which is politics, philosophy, and economics.
Okay.
Which is what all the prime ministers take.
All right.
David Cameron, I think he read it. Boris Johnson certainly read it. So they all go Eton, Oxford, and they all read they do the same thing, and then they go off and do achieve lots. And I went to a lesser university, and I've gone and achieved nothing.
No, but did you want to go out there? Did you want to get to the politicians?
No, I didn't.
It's not a good job to have.
No,
really.
it's a thankless task. The only time you ever contact your politician is when you've got something you're not happy about. Yeah?
Yeah,
you never ring up and go, my God, you're the best MP I've ever had. Thank you. You know what? You fixed this and you're amazing.
Yeah, but then when does a politician actually fix things?
Well, I think it's a really difficult job. I think the civil service. I mean, not that I know. What do I know? But I think the civil service is probably very heavily voted. And it's like a big business. And a simple analogy for you: a Boeing 747, those mega airplanes.
Yeah.
The pilots, the guys at the front, all they see is blue sky. It's lovely. Okay, autopilot, lovely. Off we go. What they don't see is all the guys working up and down the aisles, handing out the gin and tonics. They don't see the mechanics on the ground, making sure it's ready for takeoff. They don't, all those elements that go into making that plane take off, land, the air traffic controllers, all the planning to make sure that they can fit the rotors in and that the routes are all allocated, and the big teams that are based with each air carrier, say British Airways, in their headquarters, that are planning routes and prices and how they fill the seats and all the rest of that make that plane take off. Without all of that, the plane doesn't happen. But the pilots just see the blue sky. So the guys at the top of these big companies, the guys at the top of big political organisations, governments, it's not blue. I'm not going to say it's blue sky sailing. It's not easy, but they can make decisions. But then actually how they transfer down, filter down, and the mechanics of actually putting them into practice is not easy.
But then they only make decisions based on what their team tells them. So the stewardess will say, listen, that's not going to work. This is not a good idea. And they will make it anyway because they have invested interest with a private oil company.
Well, I mean, in cases that you could well be right. I would hope that 90% of people, particularly now, who go into politics, it's you have to reapply for your job every 5 years because there's an election.
Really?
So you're not.
When was the last election?
Was it 5 years ago?
No, it wasn't.
More.
Because think of it. When did we didn't vote for Richie Sunak? We didn't vote for Liz.
But we have fixed term elections, don't we?
Oh, what do you mean for local MPs?
No, for the actual whoever's going to be our prime minister or our leading party.
Well, we haven't stuck with that.
So we have what we've done is we have stuck with that, but we have changed leaders, but the leaders haven't been elected.
Okay.
So you see what I mean?
Yeah, makes
so
sense.
Boris won a really big election.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got a massive majority,
Mm-hmm.
and then his own party killed him. So they then put a new leader of that party in, who de facto becomes prime minister.
Some may say,
And then they killed that person and that person, which some people may say is undemocratic.
or some may say Boris killed himself with his own action.
Yeah, well, correct. Who knows? But that we work on a 5-year fixed term, so there will be a general election coming up. But in the next 2 years.
So what was it like growing up in Reading then?
So I didn't grow up in Reading. I was born in Somerset, and my parents sent me off to a boarding school when I was 8.
So wait, what did your parents do?
My father was he worked for, I don't know if you know Christie's, which is Christie's and Sotheby's, the two biggest auction houses on the planet. He left school with 2 O levels and nothing else. That's it. And he went and sat. His first job was sitting on the front desk, the reception desk at Christie's. He stayed there for 18 years, worked his way up, and became relatively senior. He then quit and left London. Got married, obviously had a family, had three sons, and owned several manufacturing businesses. So
He's done well for himself.
well, I mean, I don't know. There's.
Where is he from in London?
He lived. Do you know what? Well, my family's half South African.
Oh, okay.
But I don't. He grew up in Hampshire, I think, if I'm correct. I don't know. I should know that about my own dad.
Oh, you're glad you did.
I don't know where he grew up.
So
but he went to school in London.
have you been SA? You been South Africa?
I've been to South Africa many times. I've been to. Our family's from PE, Port Elizabeth.
Yeah.
So I've been to PE, Durban, Cape Town, Joburg, and then I've obviously done Kruger. But I've been many times.
You love it there.
It's God's country.
Okay.
I think
Nice.
it's a very challenging place, and I don't know. Don't ask me about anything political or anything like that, because I wouldn't be able to answer it. But I mean, just in terms of its beauty and the character of people.
Okay.
Generally speaking, it's a wonderful place.
So going back to the boarding school, which intrigued me. So I did a conversation with he's like the head of Eton.
Okay.
Yeah, he got into the taxi. And
amazing.
All his kind of white.
Oh yeah, because they still dress like they're in 1300s.
Yeah, and he was explaining to me how they have 42 or 120 placements for all the normal people every year.
Yeah, absolutely, scholarships. Yeah, scholarships for
if you can perform well.
Yeah. I think there should be more democratisation of the public school system.
But you have to stay there.
Yeah.
And I straight away I thought, now my kids are not going to be staying away from. I need to see them every day, make sure everything's okay.
I loved it.
So that's what I was going to come to.
You either thrive, you either love it, or you hate it. One or two. So my dad, this. How about this? My dad absolutely. He went to Harrow.
Mm-hmm.
He boarded, and he absolutely hated it. But it gave him a good education. He understands all that rubbish. And when you grow up and your friends all went to boarding school and they have kids and they all go boarding school, that is the thing that you do in that particular group of people. So notion was, well, my children have to go to boarding school. Now, I am not going to deny that I'm sure I have benefited immensely from having that education, from meeting the people I met there, and then from going on from there to the university I went to, and meeting the people that I met at university. However, let me tell you this. Had I grown up and not been sent to boarding school, I would never have known any different. I'd have a different path in life. Yes? But I would know no different. And the argument, or the question more likely, is would I be happier? Would I be less happy? You know, take wealth or success, or however you define it out of the question. My life would be different, but would it be better or worse?
I suppose it depends on the people around you, isn't it?
Correct, exactly.
Your loved ones.
Well, but all your friends.
Yeah, that's
I could have gone to I went to a boarding school, but I could have gone to, you could send me to the local state school, and I could have met some of the most amazing people, had lifelong friends, gone off and done something different, lived a different life, but been deeply, deeply happy. Yeah. So it's, it's we're talking about huge, a very simple, and also I didn't have the choice. It was made for me.
Yeah, I didn't have the choice either.
I was sent. This, this naughty man. That's not for you. Zebra crossing, is it?
No.
The school. I did have a slight choice in the school, only because I was going to go to Harrow where my dad went, but I was so dyslexic.
Okay.
I'm the most dyslexic man you'll ever meet. Oh. Until I was about 7. My name's Tom. Yeah. I used to write my name T-O, and I'd write 2 N's, and I'd colour them in the middle to make an M. Because I couldn't write an M.
Okay, but you can now.
I can just about now, yeah.
Well,
progress.
Yeah.
So the point is, I was super dyslexic, so didn't get the grades to get into Harrow, so I went to a different school, which was a magical place, and I had a great time. And
were you a sporty person?
Well, I was just about to say I did everything to avoid academic work. I love sport. I love trying to sneak down to the pub for a sneaky pint instead of doing my homework.
So what was your sport?
I obviously love rugby, and I played rugby. I'm going to tell you now, I was a jack of all trades, reasonably good at everything, but did not excel at any one particular one. If I had to say there was a sport that I was really good at, well best out of all of them, is cricket. And I love my cricket. I think it's a wonderful sport.
Okay.
Because when I grew up, my heroes were people like Shane Warne and Ian Botham, and both of them were fat, drank like animals, and could still play sport at an international level, and were the best. That we still hold them up now as the best of the best of all time.
Okay.
Shane Warne, he was a little pudding, and yet he'd just walk up and throw a ball down the wicket, and it would take the middle stump out. Oh. So I kind of think things like that.
What was a typical day like for you in school?
That's a very good question. Bring back. I'm so old. It's almost can't remember my days back at school. So we woke up probably I would say 7:30. 7. Breakfast was, I think, from 7 till 8:30, and 7 till maybe 8, and then we'd have chapel at 8:30 for 45 minutes, and lessons started at 9:30. You'd work through on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You'd work through until 5 o'clock, just lessons back to back. You'd obviously lunch, lessons back to back. Then you had your free time in the evenings, and then prep, so where you sat down to do your homework, would be 7:30 to 9. Sport on Tuesdays and Thursdays, if I remember correctly, you finished at lunchtime, so 1 o'clock, and then you played sport from 2 till 4:30. and obviously sports matches were always on Thursdays. Now, this is probably why I loved cricket. So the cricket matches were always on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and cricket's an all-day sport. So if you played cricket, you got out of a whole day's lessons on Wednesdays. So, and if you got on the first team, the first team cricket pitch was always right out in front. It was in the front of the school, and the entire school would come out, during their break and sit out and watch you. And it was always a great thing to have that. And you used to get a £50 prize if you were able to score a six and put it through the headmaster's window, because the headmaster's office was on the corner of the school.
Yeah.
I mean, it was impossible. It was miles away, but it was quite. We used to think it was quite a nice thing that the headmaster said, "Look, if anyone manages to put a ball through, score a six and put a ball through my window, I'll put £50 in your in your." We had,
did anyone get close?
No. I mean, I had a go and I scored a couple of sixes, but I mean they were a long way off.
Did your brothers, were they in the boarding school?
Yeah. So interestingly, one is 2.5 years younger than me, and he's like my best friend. And we went to different universities, and we actually became very close when we arrived in London. So in the last sort of decade, whilst we've been here working in London, we've become incredibly close, and we've both been really lucky. We both had super friends, and they've merged. So I'll suddenly see pictures of him out one night with all my mates. I'm like, what the fucking hell? Why didn't I get an invite? And then 3 weeks later, I'll bump in. I'll go and have a night out with all his mates. So that's great. And then I have one brother who's 11 years younger. So there's a difference, and I love him dearly. And he's called Jack, and not that it matters, Jack, but Jack is gay. And talking about experience of childhood and school, he had a dreadful time because he was bullied mercilessly, because you don't choose this. And now I knew that Jack was gay from the age of 6, because when I used to go and watch him play hockey at school, instead of holding his hockey stick ready to play, he'd have it like that, and sort of have his arm on his, like that, and be leaning on it like a walking stick. So but you could tell. And what I didn't like is that he was pushed into the same environment that we were, and go and do the same things they've done, when actually he's clearly a different child. Yet he's flourished. He plays the piano, he plays the cello. He went to Durham. He got the Chancellor's Award. He took ancient Spanish and French. He now lives in Spain. He has a top job in technology, and he's just done a master's in Catalonian, which is a particular dialect in Spanish. So although he had that horrendous time at school, he's the one who's come out. And I always say that if there was, we were put up in front of a concrete wall and there was a firing squad, he'd be the one you'd keep, and you'd shoot Ollie, my middle brother, and me. He's by far and away the better of the three of us. So it's really interesting.
We're coming to the end of the journey now.
We are.
I've got a couple of questions.
Please.
Looking at you've had an interesting life.
Yeah, one of them.
What would be your words of advice to your children?
Do you know what?
About life?
Well, mine would be work hard, work fucking hard when you're young and you can. Now I'm ancient. I'm 35. So it gets harder getting out of bed in the morning, and it's only going to get harder. In your 20s, you're up, you're out, and the likelihood is to party. So I'd say work hard. In your 20s, just go for it, hammer it, get a really good foundation, and do something that you really love. I found that I've chosen to try and follow ambition rather than passion. And whilst there is a great deal of passion in what I do, the passion wasn't the driver. I think maybe the passion, you look back when you're dead and you think, actually, if you'd done things that filled you with passion, all your life, you might have had a richer life.
Okay.
And make good friends. Make sure you know, it doesn't matter who they are, how they orientate, what they look like, where they're from. But when you're young and you're at school, enjoy it. Make good friends. Even if you don't like sport, try and play sport or join a society, because those will be your people for life, your support network for life.
How do you? What would you say to your 16-year-old self?
Stop fucking around and do some work. If we go straight, we need to just go onto onto. It always takes us there. I don't know why. It's just on the next, just literally at the end of this road.
At the end of this road.
Yeah, at the end of this road.
Okay.
Stop fucking around. Stop trying not to work, and actually do some work. Stop trying to sneak around the back of the outbuildings for a cigarette, and pay a bit more attention to your school subjects.
Okay.
And be less nasty. Be less nasty to your teachers.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for that.
It's been a pleasure to meet you.
And we wish you well.
I really enjoyed that, Jen, and that's been the best taxi drive I've had in a very long time. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Okay. We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day, as well as vlogging on our social media channels. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.